I want to ask you, though, Hillary, about the economic implications on this, because obviously Susan talked about the small business angle, but Caterpillar gets 70% of its business outside of America. Apple gets 67% of its business outside of America. Now, a lot of people here are saying, well, why does it matter to me? If those stocks go up, your pension fund goes up, and you might have a pretty good retirement.
But ultimately, with this bill, had it passed, would it really have impacted for the positive all these companies? Because Tammy's point is so well taken. This is the trade bill. It wasn't really a trade bill. It was really a bill that let
well, you don't really know that per se. You're assuming that. You're assuming that it wasn't a trade deal.
But everything from what I have read shows it was a trade. It was a deal
to those websites that have skull and crossbones. That's your first sign that maybe the site. I'm just joking. Keep going.
Okay. But the problem is that companies could have been hurt, workers would have been hurt, and there was a lot that was shoved into this. And President Obama, I think he really turned off everyone, not just on the right, but on the left, clearly, because of the way he came and presented. This was since 2010 with the Affordable Care Act, he hadn't pushed something through with such drama, and I think everyone was trying to show him, President Obama.
Well, that's the comeuppance part that's why I put it in there. But are you, in general, before I ask Jim, are you in general in favor of trade with other nations?
I'm in favor of trade with other nations, but trade with other nations where there's transparency, not so that we can do backroom deals and maybe hurt either workers or companies of ours.
Jim, what do you think?
Look, I think I'm not sure you can have it
By
both
the way,
ways.
you're the only one who didn't write anything on this. I'm
going to do that tonight.
Okay.
I'm
He tweeted.
I did tweet on this, by the way.
Okay.
But no, you can't have it both ways. Meaning, I think if it's good for the company and it's good for the worker, it's bad for the company, it's bad for the worker. I actually think this was a blow to a number of corporations. Japan made this a top priority to get in this deal and be part of it. So you know who this is bad for today? It's bad for Sony, okay? Or it was bad for Japan. They pay a lot for food. They pay some of the highest food prices. So you know what? Some U.S. food companies were licking their chops to sell stuff more to Japan, and I think that's a blow for them. So it might be protectionist in some ways, but we talk about we want free trade, and we also want our sovereignty. Sometimes you have to give a little bit. I think, to a certain extent, the bus has left the station. Labor will find its cheapest place, and I think this bill had a lot more to do, as my understanding, on the higher end intellectual property rights, knowledge services. I think that's what that's what the U.S.
Here's the point here. Have you not listened to every member of your panel? We've all said, this is how I understand. This is what I believe. This is what I've read. None of us have concrete what was in this bill. We're probably all for free trade, but you hit the nail on the head. It's not fair trade. That's the issue with this. Nobody knows what was in it. If they would have been honest and laid out the details, we could be for or against it.
Here's a problem.
We just don't know.
I'm coming to you in 1 second, Susan, but here's a problem that I had, particularly with the Democrats. I don't think a lot of people know that TAA was already in existence. That it was already in existence. So essentially, Democrats let it expire. So what the Democrats have said to American workers, this was something that was in place so that if you lost your job or you lost money because of trade, you have no resources now for this, because we think climate change is more important, and we also think the idea that corporations, U.S. corporations, might make more money and have the ability to sue governments, in other words, making them a person, is more critical than you feeding your family.
Well, they knew, though, this had to be passed as a collective.
Right.
That you had to kill one of them. This was the easiest one to kill, because Pelosi months ago was saying that, you know how they were going to pay for this, another redistribution of wealth, was through cuts to Medicare. So suddenly, Pelosi was saying a long time ago, Obama should have heard this coming around the corner, that they weren't in favor of cutting Medicare to pay for the TAA, and they're also admitting effectively this bill is going to displace American workers. And so we're going to have to, find a way to boost them up. But she has been complaining about that. That was the easiest way to organize Democrats around this framework, and it worked, because I was surprised they went immediately and passed the TPA in the meantime, which also people aren't speaking about, lessens the number of votes you need to pass the TPP from 61 to 51. And that's the thing that is not discussed. So it eliminates the need for 10 extra votes to pass the last bill.
Right. Now, having said that, though, probably it comes back up next week. Boehner actually considered trying to even bring it back for a vote even today. That margin was too wide. 300 no's is a lot to overcome in a couple of hours. What will change? What would have to change, Susan, then to get this thing through next week?
I don't even see how it's going to be possible, because I just don't think the parties are going to come together. But one of the things I want to make about the TAA is, according to the Department of Labor's study, the net impact to our economy was actually a minus $53,000. So the program hasn't worked. And it also is very subjective in its viewpoint. How do you prove that someone was really displaced because of trade?
I think out of 150,000 or so people who applied for it, like 40,000 even got any kind of cash. I mean, we know that it was just one of these things that you put in and you probably use it in a campaign sticker or something like that. All right, Jim, how important is this then? Let's say it doesn't make it even next week. How important is it overall to the stock market and to the U.S. economy? We know there won't be an immediate hit, but this is the fastest growing area in the world. You want to be in the Pacific. Over the next 50, 100 years, that's where the best growth is going to be in the global economy.
I'm glad you're highlighting the Pacific, because at the onset of the financial crisis, a number of folks were talking about it's no longer the Atlantic. Now for the U.S., it's the Pacific. Right. And I think this is a very important thing for business, for markets, for making money. Is it a catastrophe if it doesn't get done? I actually think it is not a catastrophe, but I will tell you that I think it's better for companies, it's better for stocks if it does get done.
All right, and I think it is a catastrophe for President Obama no matter what.